Everyone thinks New York State is just two settings: Manhattan rent prices and upstate depression. No in between, no survivors. But buried between toll roads, abandoned malls, and towns that time politely forgot, there are places in New York that feel illegal to exist. Cheap, quiet, weirdly livable. The kind of towns that make you double-check Google Maps like, wait, this is still New York? Yeah, those places? And nobody talks about them for a reason. See, the entire narrative around New York has been hijacked by two extremes. Either you're drowning in a shoebox apartment in Brooklyn, where your bedroom is technically a hallway and your kitchen shares square footage with a broom closet, or you're trapped in some forgotten corner of upstate where the biggest employer is nostalgia and the second biggest is disappointment. But what if I told you there's a third category? A glitch in the matrix. Towns where the cost of living didn't get the memo that this is New York. Places where actual human beings live in actual houses without requiring a trust fund, 3 roommates, or a side hustle that violates at least 2 laws. These aren't communes. They're not off-the-grid survivalist camps. They're just normal towns, with normal prices, in the least normal state for affordability. And the fact that most people don't know they exist? That's not an accident. That's marketing. When people hear New York, they picture $4,000 studios, angry pigeons, and landlords who charge extra for sunlight. What they don't picture are small towns with actual houses, actual yards, and prices that feel like a typo. This list exists because New York has a PR problem. Everyone assumes the entire state is financially hostile. But that's lazy thinking. And lazy thinking is expensive. The media loves to sell you the New York fantasy, the hustle, the energy, the idea that suffering through overpriced misery somehow builds character. Meanwhile, there are entire zip codes in this state where people are living comfortably, building equity, and not spending 40% of their income on rent. But those stories don't trend. They don't generate clicks, because affordable New York town sounds like a contradiction, and contradictions don't fit neatly into algorithms. So today, we're breaking the algorithm. We're looking at 5 small towns in New York State that feel like they accidentally slipped past the cost of living police. Towns where your mortgage is less than a car payment, traffic means waiting behind a tractor, and nightlife is whatever happens at the gas station after 9 p.m. Some of these places are charming, some are concerning. All of them will make you say, how is this still New York? We're talking about real estate listings that look like someone forgot a zero. Communities where people actually know their neighbors without it being a dystopian surveillance situation. Places where the biggest complaint is that the pizza shop closes too early, not that your entire paycheck evaporates on the first of the month. Now, full transparency, these towns aren't for everyone. If you need constant stimulation, trendy brunch spots, and validation from strangers, you're going to suffer here. But if you value financial sanity, space to think, and the ability to save money without performing miracles, these places might just rewire your brain. If you enjoy saving money, confusing coastal elites, or just watching your worldview quietly collapse, hit like, subscribe, and emotionally prepare yourself. Let's start with a town that looks like a Hallmark movie, but is priced like a garage sale. Town number 1, Little Falls, New York. Little Falls is what happens when a postcard stops aging, but the housing prices don't. This town sits along the Mohawk River, about halfway between Albany and Syracuse, which means it's close enough to civilization to matter, but far enough away to avoid most of it. Population? Just under 5,000 people, which is small enough that your neighbors will recognize your car, and medium enough that that's slightly unsettling. But here's the thing about Little Falls. It doesn't feel abandoned. It feels paused, like someone hit the slow motion button on progress and nobody complained loud enough to fix it. Now let's talk price shock. This is the kind of town where you can find actual houses, not starter sheds or creative studio concepts, for the price of a down payment in Brooklyn. We're talking numbers that make Zillow feel embarrassed to show you. 3-bedroom homes with yards, garages, and functional plumbing for less than what some people spend annually just existing in Queens. And before you ask, no, these aren't condemned. No, they're not haunted. They're just affordable, because nobody's competing for them. But why is it cheap? Because Little Falls used to be an industrial town. Textiles, manufacturing, canal trade, the whole upstate New York starter pack. Then those jobs left, the economy sighed deeply, and the town just stayed. No dramatic collapse, no mass exodus, just a quiet economic deflation that left behind infrastructure, history, and prices that forgot to inflate with the rest of the state, which is exactly why it's interesting now. Living here feels like stepping into a slower operating system. The pace is calm, almost suspiciously calm. No one's in a rush. No one's impressed by your LinkedIn profile. If you say you work in tech, someone will ask if that's near Home Depot. There's a main street with local businesses that have been there for decades. Not because they're thriving in some gentrified comeback story, but because they're stable. People shop there. People know the owners. It's functional in a way that feels almost radical compared to the constant churn of urban retail. The community here is tight but not suffocating. You'll be the new person for about 6 months, then you're just part of it. People wave. They remember your name. They ask about your dog. It's either charming or mildly invasive, depending on your tolerance for human connection. Winters? Aggressive. The cold doesn't just arrive, it kicks the door in and rearranges your attitude. Snow piles up like it has a personal vendetta, and the wind off the river feels like it's testing your commitment to the area. You will own a good winter coat. You will learn to love layers. You will develop opinions about snow shovels. This is non-negotiable. And summer? Shockingly nice. Green everywhere, river walks, old stone buildings, sunsets that make you forget your rent is reasonable. There's hiking nearby, kayaking on the Mohawk, quiet parks where you can actually hear yourself think. The kind of summer evenings where people sit on porches and the biggest decision is whether to grill tonight or tomorrow. Shopping options are limited. You won't find luxury brands, but you will find the same 3 stores everyone goes to, forever. And somehow, that works. There's a grocery store, a hardware store, a diner where the coffee is aggressively average, but the regulars have assigned seats. If you need something specific, you drive. If you need something niche, you order online. It's simple, almost annoyingly simple. But here's what Little Falls offers that most of New York doesn't. Predictability without chaos. You know what your costs are, you know what your commute is, you know your neighbors aren't going to get priced out next year because some hedge fund discovered the area. Little Falls isn't flashy. It doesn't try to impress you. It just exists, quietly affordable, stubbornly New York, and weirdly proud of it. And once you see the prices, the real question becomes, why did nobody tell you this place existed? Town number 2, Ogdensburg, New York. Ogdensburg is so far north it feels like Canada's unfinished basement, except the prices are somehow still American. This town sits right on the St. Lawrence River, staring directly at Canada like it's waiting for permission to leave. In fact, on a clear day, you can literally wave at another country, which is the closest most New Yorkers will ever get to international property without a passport. Population? Around 10,000 people, which sounds reasonable until you realize half the town feels like it's permanently indoors recovering from winter. But let's address the elephant in the room. Ogdensburg is remote. Like, aggressively remote. The kind of remote where your GPS starts second-guessing itself and asking if you're sure about this. Now let's get to the part that makes Zillow users emotionally unstable. Homes here regularly list for prices that feel like a prank. Not fixer-upper delusions. Not needs vision. Actual houses. With walls. And roofs. For less than what some people pay annually, just to exist in New York City. We're talking full properties with multiple bedrooms, basements, driveways, sometimes even garages, all for prices that would barely cover a security deposit in Manhattan. The math doesn't math. And yet, here we are. So why is Ogdensburg this cheap? Distance. Pure, unapologetic distance. This town is remote. Like, you accidentally drive for 20 minutes without seeing another human remote? Major industries used to be manufacturing, shipping, and border trade. Then those slowed down, and Ogdensburg just didn't panic. It stayed quiet. Too quiet for hype. Too far for investors. And that's exactly why it slipped under the radar. There's no commuter corridor pumping workers in and out daily. There's no nearby metro area inflating demand. There's just the town, doing its thing, unbothered. Living here feels like the volume knob of life got turned way down. Traffic? Almost theoretical. Rush hour is just two pickup trucks politely negotiating an intersection. You'll spend more time waiting for trains to pass than you will stuck in actual traffic. People here move at a different speed. Not lazy, not unmotivated, just not frantically performing productivity for an invisible audience. Work happens. Errands get done. But nobody's sprinting through life like they're being chased. Weather, however, is not polite. Winter here is feral. Snow doesn't fall, it commits. Cold air moves in like it's trying to legally claim your sinuses. At some point, you stop checking the forecast and just assume hostility. You will own boots. You will understand wind chill. You will develop a relationship with your snowblower that borders on emotional dependency. But then summer shows up and gaslights you. Suddenly there's water everywhere, boats on the river, people outside smiling like winter never emotionally scarred them. Fishing, kayaking, sunset views that feel stolen from a travel brochure. The river becomes the main character. People actually use it. There are boat launches, fishing spots, quiet beaches where you can exist without fighting for space. It's the kind of summer that makes you forget you spent 4 months in a frozen hellscape. Shopping options are basic. If you want luxury, you'll need to drive. If you want essentials, you're covered, and honestly, that's the whole vibe here. There's a Walmart, a few local shops, restaurants that serve food without pretending to reinvent cuisine. If you need variety, you're looking at a road trip. If you need consistency, you're golden. Ogdensburg isn't for everyone. It's isolated. It's cold. It's quiet in a way that forces you to hear your own thoughts. But if you want, low costs, zero chaos, and the bragging rights of living somewhere nobody believes exists, this town quietly wins. And the wildest part? It's still New York. Town number 3. Gloversville, New York. Gloversville sounds fake. And honestly, the prices kind of do too. This town sits in Fulton County, about an hour northwest of Albany, tucked into rolling hills that look peaceful until you realize they've been watching people leave for decades. Population? Roughly 15,000, which is big enough to have history, drama, and opinions, and small enough that everyone knows which houses are those houses. Gloversville has a vibe. Not a good vibe or a bad vibe, just a vibe. The kind of place where you can feel the weight of its industrial past in every brick building and faded storefront. It's lived, it's survived, and it's priced like it knows exactly what it is. Now let's hit the price shock. You can find homes here listed for numbers that feel like someone forgot to update them after 1997. Not theoretical homes, not bring a hazmat suit homes. Actual, livable houses with porches, yards, and the audacity to be affordable in New York State. Full-size properties with room to breathe, driveways, sometimes even updated kitchens, all for prices that make people from downstate suspicious. Like, genuinely convinced there's a catch. Spoiler. The catch is that it's just not trendy. So what happened? Gloversville used to be the glove capital of the world. Leather manufacturing, factories, steady work, the whole American industrial dream. Then globalization showed up, shook hands, and quietly removed the jobs. The economy collapsed, the town didn't. And that's why it's cheap. When the factories closed, Gloversville didn't get bulldozed and rebuilt as luxury lofts. It just stayed. People stayed. Families stayed. The town adapted without erasing itself. Living here feels like walking through a town that knows it peaked, but isn't bitter about it. There's pride in the bones of the place. Old brick buildings, wide streets, schools that used to be packed. You can see what it was and what it still tries to be, and there's something quietly dignified about that. Daily life is calm, almost stubbornly so. No one's chasing trends, no one's trying to impress you. If you overdress, people will notice, not in a mean way, just in a "who are you trying to fool" way. There's a main street that still has local businesses, a diner, a hardware store, a pizza place where the slices are bigger than your face and cost less than a subway fare. It's functional. It's unpretentious. It works. Weather? Classic upstate New York chaos. Winters are long, gray, and spiritually exhausting. The kind where the sky forgets how colors work. Snow piles up, melts, refreezes, and dares you to complain. You will understand the concept of lake effect snow. You will own multiple scrapers. You will debate the ethics of remote starters. But spring and summer flip the script. Green everywhere. Quiet parks. Lakes nearby. The kind of peace that makes you accidentally relax. People emerge from their homes like they've been hibernating. Yards get mowed, gardens get planted. The town remembers what sunshine looks like, and for a few months, it's genuinely pleasant. Shopping and dining are modest. You won't find cutting-edge anything, but you'll find places that have been open forever, which is either comforting or concerning, depending on your trust issues. There's no foodie scene, no artisan coffee culture, no boutique shopping experience, but there's consistency. The same pizza place, the same diner, the same bar where locals gather and pretend to watch sports. If you need more, you drive to Albany. If you need less stress, you stay put. Gloversville isn't trendy. It's not up and coming. It's not trying to reinvent itself on Instagram. It's just affordable, stable, and still standing. And for the right person, that's not depressing. That's leverage. Town number 4, Norwich, New York. Norwich feels like a town that accidentally survived an economic extinction event and never bragged about it. This one's tucked into Chenango County in central New York, not upstate, but not anywhere people brag about visiting either. It's the kind of place you end up in by mistake, and then quietly start checking home prices. Population? Around 7,000 people, which is small enough to feel personal, but large enough that the town still functions without improvising everything. Norwich has a downtown. An actual, functioning downtown with storefronts that aren't all empty. It's not thriving in some viral comeback story, but it's also not dead. It's just there, doing its thing. Quietly competent. Now brace yourself. Norwich has houses listed for prices that feel like they forgot a digit. Not condemned buildings. Not bring a contractor and a therapist. Actual homes with yards, garages, and the audacity to exist in New York State. Properties that would cost $500,000 in the suburbs are sitting here in the low 6 figures, sometimes the high 5 figures. And they're not disasters. They're just normal houses in a normal town with deeply abnormal prices. So why is it cheap? Because Norwich was built around manufacturing and agriculture, dairy, tools, small factories. When those industries shrank, the town didn't collapse. It just stopped growing. No boom, no crash, just a long, quiet plateau. And that's exactly what keeps costs low. Without growth, there's no speculation. Without speculation, there's no hype. Without hype, prices stay tethered to reality, which means people who actually live here can actually afford to live here. Wild concept. Living here feels stable, almost aggressively normal. There's a downtown that still functions. Local shops that know your name by the third visit. Restaurants that close early because nobody's pretending nightlife is a thing. You'll find a library, a couple of parks, schools that aren't falling apart, sidewalks that mostly work, infrastructure that suggests someone at some point cared about maintenance. If you're looking for excitement, Norwich will disappoint you quickly. If you're looking for predictability, it's borderline therapeutic. Weather? Classic central New York behavior. Winters are cold, gray, and emotionally draining in a "why am I like this?" way. Snow sticks around longer than it's welcome. Spring arrives late, apologetically. You will own layers. You will understand the phrase wintry mix. You will question your life choices at least once per February, but summer makes up for it. Green hills, quiet roads, farmers markets, the kind of calm that makes weekends feel longer than they should. People actually go outside. There are trails nearby, parks where kids play without being supervised by 7 adults. Community events that people actually attend, not because they're trendy, but because there's literally nothing else to do, and that's fine. Infrastructure here is surprisingly solid. Roads exist. Utilities work. Internet is usable, not fast, but loyal. This town won't impress tech bros, but it won't sabotage your Zoom call either. If you work remotely, Norwich is quietly perfect. Low cost of living, stable internet, enough infrastructure to function, not enough distractions to ruin your productivity. Shopping options are practical. You have what you need, nothing you don't. And that's the point. There's a grocery store, a pharmacy, a dollar store, a pizza place. The essentials are covered. If you want more, you drive. If you want less stress, you don't. Norwich isn't trying to sell you a dream. It's offering something much rarer in New York. A life where your housing costs don't control your personality, which makes this town quietly dangerous. because once you realize how livable it is, it's hard to unsee it. Town number 5. Massena, New York. Massena feels like someone dragged a Midwest town into New York, dropped it near Canada, and then forgot to tell Zillow. This place sits way up in St. Lawrence County, right along the Canadian border. And yes, it feels that far north. If New York City is the main character, Massena is the NPC nobody bothered to update. Population? About 10,000 people, give or take a few who are still emotionally recovering from winter. Massena has an interesting identity crisis. It's technically New York, but it doesn't feel like New York. It's close to Canada, but it's definitely not Canadian. It's just itself. Unbothered, unbranded, uncomfortably affordable. Now here's where disbelief kicks in. Massena has homes listed for prices that feel like they belong in a different state or a different decade. We're talking full houses, yards, driveways, sometimes garages, for numbers that would barely cover a year of rent downstate. And no, this isn't a typo. It's a lifestyle decision. Properties with multiple bedrooms, functional kitchens, basements you can actually use, all priced like someone's playing a prank on the housing market. Except it's real. It's been real. And nobody cares because nobody's looking. So why is it this cheap? Because Massena was built on heavy industry. Aluminum plants, power generation, border trade. For decades, this town had real jobs and real paychecks. Then globalization showed up, industry downsized, and Massena got quieter, but it never fully collapsed. It stabilized, and stabilization is poison to hype. Without hype, investors ignore you. Without investors, prices don't inflate. Without inflation, people can actually afford to live. It's a self-fulfilling cycle of affordability that most of New York forgot was possible. Living here feels oddly practical. People aren't chasing trends. They're chasing decent winters, affordable heating bills, and whether the bridge traffic is annoying today. The pace of life is slow but functional. Not sleepy, just unbothered. Nobody's pretending to be something they're not. There's work here. Not glamorous work, but steady work. Manufacturing still exists. Power plants still run. Border logistics still matter. People have jobs. They pay their bills. They live. The weather, however, is not forgiving. Winters here are serious, not cute snowfall winters. These are commitment-based winters, cold that doesn't ask how you feel about it. Snow that accumulates like it's trying to make a point. Wind that cuts through your jacket and questions your choices. You will own serious winter gear. You will winterize your car. You will develop opinions about salt versus sand. This is the cost of admission, but summer flips the mood completely. The river, the greenery, the open space, people outside, boats, sunsets that feel unfairly nice for a town this cheap. Massena in summer is borderline pleasant. People fish, they kayak, they sit outside and grill. The weather cooperates just long enough for everyone to forget that winter exists. Shopping is basic but sufficient. You won't find luxury, but you will find consistency. And consistency is underrated when your housing cost isn't strangling you. There's a grocery store, a Walmart, local diners, gas stations, hardware stores, the boring essentials that make life function. If you need more, you drive. If you need less anxiety, you stay. Massena isn't exciting. It's not charming in a curated way. It doesn't care if you like it, and that's exactly why it works. Because once you strip away hype, ego, and coastal pricing insanity, this town quietly offers something radical in New York State. Affordability without chaos. And that's why nobody talks about it. If this video messed with your perception of New York, hit like, subscribe, and comment which town shocked you the most. Because the scariest thing on this list isn't how cheap these places are, it's how many people will never believe you. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody likes admitting. New York isn't expensive. Popular New York is expensive. What you just saw weren't secret loopholes or sketchy technicalities. They're real towns, real houses, real people. Still inside the same state that charges $8 for coffee and calls it culture. These places aren't hidden because they're dangerous. They're hidden because they're boring to influencers, too quiet for hype, and way too honest for real estate TikTok. Think about that for a second. These towns have been here the whole time. They've had affordable housing for decades. People have been living normal, financially stable lives, while the rest of the state spirals into rent-induced panic attacks. But you've never heard of them, because the algorithm doesn't reward boring. It rewards chaos. It rewards struggle. It rewards the narrative that you have to suffer to live in New York. And that narrative makes someone money, just not you. And that's the trade-off. You give up nightlife. You give up convenience. You give up the illusion that being busy means you're winning. But in return, you get something most people in New York never will. Breathing room, financial leverage, a life where your rent doesn't dictate your personality. You get to save money. You get to build equity. You get to make decisions based on what you actually want, not what you can barely afford.